The heat at the park was physical, a heavy wet blanket that smelled of cut grass and sunscreen. It was the kind of Tuesday afternoon that felt endless. Somewhere in that chaotic sea of moving colors was Lily. 6 years old, with blonde pigtails and a pink shirt that said Princess in Training. Sarah looked down at her phone for a second. Just a second. An email from her boss. A meaningless notification about a deadline that seemed so important in the corporate world, but would soon feel trivial compared to the horror that was about to unfold. When she looked up, the pink shirt was gone. That initial moment of not seeing your child isn't panic. Not yet, it's confusion. A brain stutter. You scan the slide, the swings, the sandbox. You tell yourself she's just behind the climbing frame. But as the seconds tick by, 1, 2, 3, the confusion curdles into a cold, sharp dread. Lily, Sarah called out. Her voice sounded thin, swallowed by the noise of 50 other children. Then she saw them. 50 yards away near the edge of the parking lot, the boundary line she had told Lily never to cross. A man was there. He was tall, wearing a faded gray hoodie despite the heat. The hood pulled up. He was big, broad-shouldered, the kind of figure that blocks out the sun, and he had his hand clamped around Lily's upper arm. From where Sarah stood, it looked violent. A tight, possessive grip. He wasn't just holding her, he was dragging her, moving her with purpose toward a beat-up white cargo van parked crookedly by the curb. The van, the universal symbol of a parent's worst nightmare. Time didn't slow down like they say in movies. It sped up. It accelerated into a blur of terrified adrenaline. A primal sound ripped its way out of Sarah's throat. A scream that wasn't a word, but a declaration of war. She ran. She didn't feel her feet hitting the ground. She didn't feel the air in her lungs. She was a missile fueled by the purest terror a human being can experience. Let her go, she shrieked, the words tearing at her vocal cords. The man didn't stop. He had opened the back door of the van. He was lifting Lily up. He was putting her inside. Just as the man turned, Sarah launched herself at him. She collided with his back, a tangle of limbs in fury. Get off her, she screamed, clawing at his hoodie, hammering her fists against his solid back. The man stumbled, surprised by the impact, but he didn't fall. He spun around, easily catching Sarah's wrists in one large hand, immobilizing her. Laddie! Stop! His voice was a boom of thunder, deep and commanding. Sarah struggled, tears blinding her, ready to die right there on the asphalt if it meant buying Lily a second to run. You're not taking her, she sobbed, hysterical. Help! Someone help! She looked around wildly. Other parents had stopped. They were watching, holding up phones, recording. But nobody moved. Just like on the highway, the world watched, but nobody stepped in. Mommy! The voice was small, trembling. Sarah froze. She looked past the man's bulk. Lily wasn't in the van. She was standing on the sidewalk, pressed against the man's leg, clutching his jeans. She wasn't crying because she was hurt. She was crying because she was scared of Sarah's screaming. Mommy, stop hitting him, Lily whimpered. The man released Sarah's wrists slowly, holding his hands up in a gesture of surrender. For the first time, Sarah actually looked at him. Under the hood, his face wasn't twisted in malice. It was pale, shocked. He was sweating profusely, his eyes wide with concern. He took a deep breath, pointing a shaking finger toward the parking lot behind them. Look, he said, his voice rough. Sarah turned. There on the black asphalt were skid marks, thick black rubber burns that ended inches from where Lily was standing. A black sedan had sped off, but the evidence of its recklessness remained. She ran after a ball, the man said, his voice trembling slightly now. She ran right between two parked cars. That car, he was doing 40, he didn't see her. I saw him coming. The realization hit Sarah harder than the physical collision. He hadn't been dragging Lily to the van to kidnap her. He had snatched her up to pull her out of the path of a speeding car. He was putting her behind the van doors to create a barrier, a shield between the child and the road. The man reached into his back pocket. Sarah flinched, instinct still screaming danger. But he didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a leather wallet and flipped it open. A gold badge glinted in the sunlight. I'm off duty, he said quietly. Paramedic. The silence that followed was heavy. The adrenaline crashed out of Sarah's system, leaving her knees weak. She collapsed onto the curb, pulling Lily into her chest. She buried her face in her daughter's hair, smelling the strawberry shampoo and the playground dust. I thought, Sarah choked out, the shame washing over her hot and fast. I thought you were taking her. The man, the hero she had attacked, sat down on the curb next to them. He pulled down his hood. He looked tired. The kind of tired you get from seeing too many bad things happen to good people. I know what it looked like, he said softly. You're a mom. You did what moms do. You fought. Most people, he continued, looking at the bystanders who were finally lowering their phones. Most people freeze. You didn't. Sarah looked at the skid marks again. Inches. Her entire world had been inches away from ending. And this stranger, this man in a hoodie who looked like every warning she'd ever heard, had been the only one paying attention. We live in a world where we are taught to fear strangers, to fear the van, to fear the hoodie. And that fear is valid. It keeps us safe. But sometimes fear blinds us to the truth. Sometimes the person we are running from is the only one running toward us when disaster strikes. It takes a village to raise a child, they say. But on that day, the village was empty, except for one man who chose to act. It's a reminder to all of us. Keep your eyes open. Put the phone down. Look out for each other. Because you never know when you might be the only thing standing between a child and a tragedy. If this story touched you, or if you've ever had a moment where a stranger turned out to be a savior, let me know in the comments. And please, hit that subscribe button. Let's build a community of people who look out for one another, because the world needs more heroes. And sometimes they're just waiting for the right moment to step in. The diner smelled like it always did on a Friday night, stale coffee, frying bacon, and too many people crammed into too few booths. For Jenny, it was just another shift in a double that never seemed to end. Her feet throbbed in rhythm with the neon sign buzzing in the window. She was on autopilot, pouring water, taking orders, faking smiles. Until she got to table 4, it was a couple. But something about the math didn't add up. The man was older, maybe mid-40s, wearing a suit that cost more than Jenny's car. The girl across from him couldn't have been more than 17. She was wearing a prom dress, but she wasn't smiling. She was shivering even though it was 80 degrees in the diner. Jenny approached with the pot. "More coffee?" she asked, keeping her voice bright. The man answered before the girl could even look up. "No, we're leaving." His voice was smooth, confident, but his hand was resting on the table, tapping a restless, agitated rhythm. The girl didn't look at the man. She looked at Jenny. For a split second, her eyes locked onto the waitresses. It was a look Jenny knew it wasn't hunger. It was desperation, a silent, screaming plea trapped behind a wall of fear. "Check, please," the man demanded, snapping his fingers. Jenny nodded, pulling the pad from her apron. She tore off the slip and placed it on the table. As she turned to walk away, she felt a light tug on her apron strings. She paused, blocking the man's view with her body. The girl slid the receipt back toward her. Jenny walked to the counter, her heart hammering against her ribs. She looked down at the paper. Written in shaky, faint ballpoint ink on the back of the receipt were 2 words, HAILPME. The air in the diner suddenly felt thin. Jenny looked back at table 4. The man was standing up. He was gripping the girl's upper arm, his fingers digging into her skin. They were leaving. If they walked out that door, the girl would be gone. Swallowed by the night, Jenny needed time. She needed a reason to stop them. She needed a weapon. She looked at the fresh pot of coffee in her hand. It was steaming hot. A plan formed in her mind, reckless, dangerous, and completely necessary. She walked back toward table 4, moving fast. "Sir, you forgot your receipt," she called out. The man turned, annoyed. "Keep the change," he sneered, pulling the girl toward the exit. Jenny didn't slow down. She pretended to trip on a loose floor tile. She let go of the handle. The pot flew forward, a dark arc of liquid soaring through the air. It crashed onto the man's expensive suit, splashing scalding liquid down his front. The diner went silent. The man roared in pain and shock, letting go of the girl to clutch at his burning chest. "You stupid cow," he screamed, his face turning a violent shade of red. "Look what you did." He lunged at Jenny, raising a hand to strike her. The manager and the busboy were there in an instant, grabbing the man, holding him back. Chaos erupted. Customers stood up. "Phones came, I'll call the cops," the man yelled, pointing at Jenny. "I want her arrested." "This is assault." "I already called them," Jenny said. Her voice wasn't bright anymore. It was cold, steel. She wasn't looking at the man. She was looking at the girl, who had backed away into the safety of the kitchen doorway. The police arrived 3 minutes later. They didn't arrest Jenny. When they ran the man's ID, the system lit up red. He was wanted in 3 states for trafficking. The prom date wasn't a date. It was a transaction. As the officers cuffed him, dragging him out past the stunned customers, the man glared at Jenny. He realized too late that the clumsiness was calculated. The spilled coffee wasn't an accident. It was an anchor. The girl sat in a booth with a female officer wrapped in a blanket. She looked up at Jenny. She didn't say a word. She just nodded. A small trembling movement that said everything. Jenny walked back to the counter to clean up the shattered glass and the spilled coffee. Her hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Her manager walked up to her. He looked at the mess on the floor. He looked at the empty pot. Then he looked at Jenny. "You're fired." He joked, a small smile playing on his lips. "If you ever do that again without telling me first." Jenny smiled back, tired but light. Sometimes customer service isn't about being polite. Sometimes it's about reading the room. It's about noticing the silence just as much as the noise. We walk past people every day. We see faces, but we don't see stories. We don't see the signals. If Jenny had just been a waitress that night, a girl would be missing today. But she chose to be more. She chose to spill the coffee, to make a scene, to be the bad guy for 5 minutes so she could be a hero for a lifetime. So the next time you see someone acting out or making a mess or causing a delay, take a second look. They might just be buying time.